We've all heard of game wars before. In fact, company rivalries have plagued video games since its conception. You see, competition is in our DNA, and company rivalries are just as normal as being human. But recently, the rivalry between two companies have pushed the boundaries on what we thought were possible or even necessary. The Cold War, now turned blood feud between Microsoft and Sony, have become quite the spectacle over the past couple of years. And they just kicked it into third gear recently, spending billions of dollars in an instant, gobbling up all the game studios and properties that they can before the enemy does. Some of these studios with price tags as big as the budget for the Mars mission. This is the first time where this quote-unquote game war actually feels like a war. Today in this video, we're going in depth on all the Sony and Microsoft video game owned properties so far, their strategies, and who might win this war. Just an exclaimer, I'm only going to cover the big chess pieces in motion and leave out the dozens of minor studios and properties that both companies own. One, because nobody cares about them, and two, because they are not going to play a big role in this war. Now that we have all of our bases covered, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lost in Dead Space, and welcome back to another video where I analyze the subject of video games. With so many new pieces added to this game of chess, I thought that this would be the perfect time to discuss the war between Sony and Microsoft, because it's becoming pretty crazy and it's starting to catch a lot of people's attention. The feud between Microsoft and Sony started all the way back with the release of the original Xbox during the PS2 era. It was late to the party, but it gained a lot of popularity fast with its better hardware and new variety of video games. Games like Fable and Halo helped skyrocket the popularity of this console even while the PlayStation 2 reigned supreme. Fast forward a couple years to the release of the PS3 and Xbox 360, where Microsoft starts to take over. With its cheaper price and its incredibly successful Xbox Live feature, Microsoft rose to the top for this generation of consoles. Even though the hardware was worse and the online features were not free like they were on the PlayStation 3. The Xbox Live feature was so successful that it revolutionized video games, not to mention Xbox's huge category of exclusives at the time. Fast forward a couple more years and we enter the Xbox One and PS4 era, where PlayStation learned from its mistakes and completely reworked their ecosystem, incorporating a massive scope of exclusives and their own version of the Xbox Live feature, called the PSN Network. They took back their throne and sped off into the distance. There was never a larger gap between these companies than during this generation. Xbox stopped doing all the things that made it so successful, and that made it much easier for people to just switch over to PlayStation. Now let's fast forward to the current times, with the release of the Xbox Series X/S and the PS5. Not only did Microsoft learn on their previous mistakes, but they capitalized on making sure that they would not lose this race. They made sure their hardware was far superior than the PS5, and they started gobbling up large companies to increase their ecosystem, much like PlayStation did in the years before. Microsoft said in an interview that they were going to create a Microsoft ecosystem, and they weren't playing around. And this is the beginning of where the new blood feud starts. Now that these companies have the console down to a science, the next big move seems to be grab up all the properties and exclusives before the enemy does. And that they have been doing. Now let's take a look at all these moving pieces and try to dissect their strategy and see where this war is going to lead. Starting off with the acquisitions. First, we have all the acquisitions that Sony has made during the PS4 era and before. We have Guerrilla Games, who made Killzone and Horizon Zero Dawn, Media Molecule, who made Little Big Planet, XDev, who made Until Dawn and Detroit Become Human, Insomniac, who made Ratchet & Clank and the Spider-Man games, Naughty Dog, who make the Uncharted and Last of Us series, Santa Monica Studio, who are behind God of War, and Sucker Punch Studios, who make Infamous and Ghost of Tsushima. It's no wonder why PlayStation became the juggernaut it is. The whole time PlayStation was buying up all these companies, Microsoft was sitting back in their lounge chair and sipping margaritas. But it seems nowadays that has changed, because out of nowhere, Microsoft throws down their trump card, the $. using copious amounts of money and their good name of being an open and positive environment to work under. In what feels like overnight, Microsoft played 8 turns in this 3D game of chess and made up a lot of ground. Let's take a look at Microsoft's blitzkrieg of IP purchases. First, we have Mojang, who is behind Minecraft, and Obsidian Entertainment, who are the developers behind Oblivion, Fallout New Vegas, the Outer Worlds series, Grounded, and the new and soon-to-be released Skyrim-like RPG Avowed. Next, we have the Turn 10 Studios, Rare, and the Resurrected Studio, Playground Games, the creators behind Forza, Perfect Dark, Banjo-Kazooie, Conquer, and the big one, Fable. And now we have one of the behemoths, Bethesda. And with Bethesda came all of the Bethesda-owned studios, like Bethesda Game Studios, id Software, ZeniMax, Machine Games, and Roundhouse Studios. With this gigantic purchase of $7.5 billion, Microsoft immediately owned a bunch of well-received studios and exclusives, which includes Wolfenstein, Doom, Quake, Prey, the new and unreleased Starfield, and most importantly, everyone's favorite 2 franchises, the Elder Scrolls series and the Fallout series. This one purchase sent shockwaves and shifted the entire playfield. This isn't checkmate by any means. Sony is still in the lead by a very large margin, but this was the acquisition that rose everyone's eyebrows, and it definitely hit the Sony ecosystem hard. Soon after, we have the biggest purchase yet, the Blizzard Activision acquisition. For a staggering $69 billion, they became owners of everything Blizzard Activision. The studios behind Overwatch, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Call of Duty, Warzone, just to name a few. This second huge purchase was a declaration of war. And soon after, Sony retaliates with the new acquisition of Bungie for $3.6 billion, whom are the original creators of Halo, which are now being developed by 343 Studios under Microsoft. And they are the developers of the hugely successful Destiny series. Incredible leaks state that very soon, Sony will purchase even more, like Capcom, who are the developers behind Resident Evil, Street Fighter, Dead Rising, and more, which I'm like 99% sure is already being discussed at this very moment. And possibly the acquisitions of FromSoft, who are the amazing developers behind Dark Souls, the soon-to-be released Elden Ring, Sekiro, and the PlayStation's exclusives Bloodborne and Demon's Souls. Not to mention the recent quick buys of Bluepoint Games, who make amazing remasters and remakes, like the Demon's Souls PS5 remake, and Nixxes, which is a company who specializes in porting large-scale console games to PC. With Sony delving into the PC space, it makes perfect sense to bring a team with the know-how into the fold, especially since Microsoft has a seeming monopoly over the PC side of things. So, what does this all mean? Well, Microsoft is scaring Sony. And it's apparent with the recent activity Sony is undergoing with. Microsoft is no longer the punching bag it was back in the PS4 era. In fact, these companies are pretty neck and neck right now, much closer than anyone at Sony would dare to believe. Seemingly overnight, Microsoft gained a plethora of highly acclaimed resources, and I'd say they made up a huge margin of the gaps between the companies. But I'd say Sony still has the advantage, especially if they acquire Capcom and FromSoft. But the gap is getting smaller, and it can be closed completely with more smart buys and the right strategy. With the superior hardware of the Series X, there is a plausible scenario where games made for the Series X are going to look much better than games made for the PS5. And that is going to get a lot of people to want to switch over or at least buy their own Series X. And with the operating system monopoly that Microsoft has for the PC, I could see them creating that PC ecosystem they were talking about and target the audience on Steam and market to them to get them to convert over to the Xbox verse. And I see them targeting this audience with the massively successful Game Pass service. Microsoft is very quickly becoming the Netflix of gaming. They already have Game Pass PC exclusives, and I see them expanding that even more to the point where people who play exclusively on Steam will switch over just because of the fantastic deal that Game Pass is. I mean, it's so successful that Sony is now ripping off the entire concept and making their own game streaming service. But hey, all is fair in the love of war. Only time will tell if the PlayStation version will get the same acclaim that Game Pass has. So what about the Sony strategy? I'd say as long as they don't take their foot off the gas pedal, keep acquiring and creating, they won't have much to fear. Because at the end of the day, especially now, if you want to play all the games, you're going to have both systems. And that's where the true winner of this war is. Both platforms. My advice is get yourself a PlayStation, an Xbox, and a PC so you don't have to worry about any of this stuff and you can just sit back and watch the fireworks fireworks happen. So who do I think is going to be the better company? I think, and I may be wrong, but I think Microsoft is going to win this in the long run. Microsoft just has so much more resources and money to get their company to the higher heights. It may take 10 years, but I do see Microsoft's ecosystem taking off. And if they keep making the right decisions, they can and will overtake PlayStation once again. But Sony is smart. I don't see them going down without a fight. They can win this fight just as easy by, like I said, just not taking their foot off that gas pedal like Microsoft did. So, who do you guys think wins? Who do you think loses? Let me know in the comments below. Honestly, it seems like everyone loses to me. I wish all games were not bound by contract and you could just play them wherever you want. But if you're going to force me to pick a company, I'm rooting for Microsoft all the way. Who are you rooting for? Let me know as well. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more videos I've done just like this, be sure to check these videos out. If you want to see other things I've done, be sure to check these out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next video.